This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
China holds National Day celebrations on the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. We bring you comprehensive coverage of this day and perspectives on lessons African countries are picking from the Chinese prosperity. Hello and welcome to CGTN. This is Africa Live, the program that brings you African and global news from all perspectives. I'm Beatrice Marshall in Nairobi. Well, let's go straight to China. And we begin in China, where it's been a celebration like no other in the country's history. The military parade commemorating the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China began Tuesday morning at Beijing's Tiananmen Square. 15,000 military personnel and thousands of spectators, some of them foreign guests, took part in the biggest National Day celebration in China. CGTN's reporter Tang Bo has more.
A 70-gun fire salute, signaling the start of a day that will not soon be forgotten. A day of celebrations, complete with national flag raising and a parade, the largest of its kind. President Xi Jinping's morning keynote speech touched upon China's development over the years and the challenges that lie ahead.
In the past 70 years, all the ethnic groups in the country have, with the same heart and mind, strived hard to reach great achievements that have impressed the world. Today, socialist China is majestically standing in the east of the world. No power can shake our great nation's status. No power can stop the Chinese people and nation from stepping forward.
President Xi inspected the participating troops, thanking each of them for their hard work in upholding China's safety and sovereignty. Soldiers responded in unison by saying, "Serve the people." The eye-catching military parade started right after the troop inspection. In total, 59 formations, with more than 160 aircraft and 580 pieces of military equipment were featured in the parade. New weapons with a high level of artificial intelligence and better striking accuracy were displayed, including the HQ-6 gun missile defense system, CJ-100 cruise missiles, and DF-41 intercontinental ballistic missiles. 40% of the armaments were shown to the public for the first time. The military parade was then followed by a civilian procession that featured 36 formations, comprised of some 100,000 people from all walks of life, along with 70 floats. The civilian parade took the stage to showcase some historic turning points in China's development over the years, including the opening up policies, the one country, two systems model shared with Hong Kong, and 2008 Beijing Summer Olympic Games. Provinces, municipalities, autonomous regions, as well as special administrative regions also took the opportunity to demonstrate their economic growth on float vehicles. Having seen some of the previous National Day celebrations, this one today seems like the best yet. It's the biggest, has the largest number of participants, spectators, and weapons. However, it is not about flexing the nation's muscles, as the Ministry of National Defense says, but demonstrating China's commitment of maintaining regional stability and world peace. And for me, it's an integration of art and technology and so much more. Tang Bo, CGTN, Beijing.
Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, a ceremony has been held to celebrate the Chinese National Day. Acting Chief Executive Matthew Cheung King Chung witnessed a national flag-raising ceremony along with other attendees. Our reporter Shu Xin-chen has more.
Hong Kong Chief Secretary Matthew Cheung, who is taking the role of acting chief executive while Carrie Lam is out of town, gave a speech during the flag-raising ceremony to celebrate the 70th anniversary for the founding of the People's Republic of China. He touched on the city's achievements based on the implementation of the one country, two systems, and said he has been saddened by recent protests in the city.
Thanks to the rapid development of the country, the living standards of the people in Hong Kong and the mainland have been continuously improving, reflecting the prosperity of Hong Kong and the country. Most Hong Kong people are upset by the current situation. Hong Kong has its solid foundation and firm support from the country. We must continue implementing the principle of one country and make good use of the benefits of the two systems.
The flag raising took place in the city's famous Boynia Square, but due to extra security concerns, only invited guests from different walks of life could attend the reception held in the city's convention and exhibition center next to the square to watch the flag raising on live TV.
First of all, I'm very proud to be invited here, and I found the speech being very sincere and honest.
經歷過呢幾十年，作為中國人，我相信冇人可以。
As a Chinese, no one can deny that in these decades we have made a dramatic change in people's livelihoods. As a citizen and a Hong Kong local, I want to send out positive information and support the future development of China.
正面啲嘅信息，大家係平和啲，支持返我哋自己國家同民族將來嘅發展。
Hong Kong these many years has gone onward and upward, and frankly I'm proud to have been a part of that personally. But on the other hand, we've had problems recently, which in some respects have been a wake-up call for people. And when Matthew was saying that the government is sincerely trying to address those problems, I think he was indeed being sincere.
The SAR government decided there would be no public viewing area for the ceremony, as they said, in the view of the latest situation in the city. Xu Xingchen, CGTN, Hong Kong.
Now, before 1949, the average life expectancy of a Chinese person was just 36 years. But thanks to dramatic improvements in both health and education, Chinese now have an average lifespan of 78 years. CGTN's Lindy Mtongana caught up with some of Shanghai's more mature citizens to find out about the lives of China's growing elderly population.
Another activity-filled day has begun at the Rainbow Bay Senior Center in Shanghai. Like other nursing homes springing up across China, this modern facility cares for the social, mental and physical well-being of China's growing elderly population. Zhang Xiangxun is an energetic 89-year-old. Between working shifts at the center's in-house supermarket, he's even managed to publish his memoirs, all thanks to his good health, something he doesn't take for granted.
I remember when my father died. He was only around 40 years old, and I was 9. He had lung disease, but there was no medicine or hospital. People lived very short lives.
China's growth in life expectancy is seen as a key marker of the nation's development, a trend that is set to continue.
The Chinese government has increased its spending on healthcare. People's awareness of health has improved and they are adopting healthier lifestyles. For these reasons, more people in our country are living longer. Take our nursing home as an example. The average age is 86, and the oldest person is 103 years old.
So what's Grandpa Zhang's secret to a long and healthy life?
I have a good attitude and I'm happy.
A good attitude certainly helps, but experts like fellow octogenarian Professor Wen credit key public health interventions in the 1950s for China's rising life expectancy.
I think the most important part is to control infectious diseases. That is the first key issue, I think, because before that, or just after the building up of our country, I think the most important diseases, the prevalent diseases, are infectious diseases. China developed many vaccines against that.
Other contributing factors include improved infant and maternal care, better water supplies, and education. Night falls across Shanghai. But for one group of old-timers, the fun has just begun. With an average age of 82, the city's oldest band takes to the stage, as they've done every night for the past 4 decades. What's their secret to a long life?
Without music, a part of life would be missing.
Shanghai's enduring elders are testament to just how much living standards have improved in China over the past 70 years. And with more efforts to boost public health services in particular, chances are this band could have more years left in it yet. Lindim Tongana, CGTN, Shanghai, China.
And CGTN's Abdulaziz Bilo shares with us how the historic 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China was celebrated in the Somali capital, Mogadishu.
Top government officials and foreign diplomats attended the 70th anniversary celebrations in Mogadishu to mark 7 decades since the founding of the People's Republic of China. Somalia says the gathering in Mogadishu aims to strengthen friendly diplomatic relations between the two nations that date back to decades ago.
Somalia and China have been together since the beginning when Somalia gained independence in 1960, and they have been partners ever since. China took many initiatives to help the Somali government. They have built many projects, development projects, and they have helped Somalia through diplomatic relations. Somalia also have been in the side of China for many years. Therefore, we enjoyed a long and prosperous history between the two countries.
Chinese ambassador to Somalia, Xin Jian, says his country welcomes recent progress made by Somali authorities. Beijing is now seeking to expand trade volumes between the two countries.
China continues to work hard to strengthen cooperation with Somalia and raise current trade volume of 450 million of two countries to the new high. China will continue to provide humanitarian assistance to Somalia and help Somalia develop its human resources.
Through its strategic location, Somalia sees itself as a gateway to the Horn of Africa. The East African nation recently signed a memorandum of understanding to join the Belt and Road Initiative and is now seeking more Chinese investment as it seeks to strengthen its weak economy.
Somalia is part of Africa, and Africa-China relations is strong. So therefore, the Road and Belt Initiative, Somalia, since it's located in a key place in Africa, will be the best country to be invested, to be the entry point of the Road and Belt Initiative to Africa. Therefore, we want to take advantage of that also.
In 2018, Somali President Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo led a high-level government delegation to attend the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation Summit in Beijing. The meeting also saw the signing of major agreements on economic and technical cooperation. On the humanitarian field, China has pumped in millions of dollars to the Somali government and UN agencies, funds that have helped avert climatic shocks in one of the world's most protracted humanitarian crises. Abdulaziz Bilo, CGTN, Mogadishu, Somalia.
Well, ahead of the celebrations, at least 6 foreigners were awarded the Medal of Friendship for their contributions to the People's Republic of China. The award is China's highest state honor for foreigners.
Former Tanzania's Prime Minister Dr. Salim Ahmed Salim becomes the only African to receive the Medal of Friendship in Beijing. The former Tanzanian ambassador to China back in 1969 contributed to the growing China-Tanzania relations. In 1971, he spearheaded the campaign for the People's Republic of China to restore its lawful seat in the United Nations.
I was there, and it had been a struggle for a number of years. Countries to try to admit China. Everybody had acknowledged that in international affairs, how can you exclude a country like China?
50 years later, Salim's contribution wins him one of China's highest state honors.
This is the message for the young people. I think that's what I want to talk about Dr. Salim from the youth perspective. The African young people, the Tanzanian young people, to understand that when you are young and you are ready to serve your country and you are committed to the service of your country, you get opportunity to be remembered, to be respected, and that is Dr. Salim. Choosing their 7th birthday to offer this medal. It's a very good timing. It's a historical timing, basically. So much as I congratulate Dr. Salim for this medal that he deserves, I congratulate also President Xi Jinping, his government, his party, and the Chinese people, the Africans, and the Tanzanians for this medal. It's a very good symbolic, it's a very good symbolic medal.
Chomgono, CGTN.
And we still have more news, views and analysis for you here on the program. Here's what's ahead. Nigerian police rescue 19 women and girls from a baby factory in Lagos. And environmentalists and activists protest as Botswana lifts hunting ban on elephants.
It is Chinatown. Against the odds, the People's Republic of China was founded 70 years ago. Since then, it has aspired for change, both at home and abroad. What is driving this endeavor, and how has it managed to evolve with the times? We will look back, and in a new era. The nation is forging new missions and visions. We will look ahead. Tune in to our exclusive coverage of the 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China.
At the Great Wall of China.
你好。
Africa Live. Find your voice.
For more on this, I'm joined by David Owiro. He's an economist and executive director, Africa Development think tank. David, thank you for joining us. First off, China is now Africa's largest trade partner, and we have seen a steady growth in trade and infrastructural deals between major African economies and China. Why is this?
I think there's a natural convergence of interests, both from the African partners as well as the Chinese who are interested in investing in the continent. One, we see a natural alignment on Chinese foreign policy towards Africa in terms of prioritizing Africa's own objectives and priorities. And we've also seen leadership from the African Union being very particular about addressing the infrastructure gap as well as other developmental challenges that Africa faces. And so the number of deals that perhaps individual countries in Africa have done with China is essentially to reflect that convergence in priorities.
We're also seeing that African countries are increasingly turning to China for goods, for equipment, and for financial loans. Why is it that the West seems to be losing out to China on this front?
I think for a long time, China is the more competitive nation in terms of technology, for instance, where we see not only more appropriate technology coming out of China, but also affordable, relatively affordable compared to, say, the traditional Western side. We also see, a very different approach towards funding and aid, where, in the West, aid would come with aid conditionalities, as opposed to China, where, aid really is dependent on Africans' own development priorities. And so I think that has naturally meant that, African nations can articulate their own development priorities better, as well as get funding from China to support those development initiatives, particularly around infrastructure development and the key foundations that they're laying for their economic growth.
And for the ordinary African, though, how would you say the ordinary people, the African people, are benefiting from these increasing trade deals between China and Africa?
Well, for one, if you look at the development in terms of the core infrastructure development, such as roads, railways, and ports, expectation is that the trade routes, the typical trade routes, and the benefits that trade would bring would trickle down to the common, African population. But in addition to that, essentially, as Africa pursues its trade frameworks, within the frameworks that it engages in, the core needs of infrastructure development, once those are addressed, then the expectation is that traders, cross-border trade will be enhanced. But not only that, we see high priority for intra-African trade actually coming out of trade within Africa. And so expectation is that as intra-African trade develops, therefore we will see more employment opportunities coming out as a result. But also we actually see a change in livelihoods as people are able to not only meet their immediate needs, but also climb up the social ladder.
And we'll be back with more on China's National Day celebrations. For now, let's take a look at other stories making the headlines across Africa. Police in Nigeria's biggest city, Lagos, announced on Monday that they had freed 19 women and girls from captivity. They say they suspect most of them were abducted and impregnated by captors planning to sell their babies.
The rescued girls and women aged between 15 to 28 were brought from all over Nigeria with the purpose of work as domestic staff, only for them to be abducted for the purpose of getting them pregnant and selling their babies. 4 babies were also found at the factory.
We rescued 19 pregnant girls, mostly from ages 15. The highest, the oldest person there is 28, but majority of them are teenagers who are pregnant and being kept in those locations with the sole aim of them giving birth, and those who kept them there to sell the babies and make money out of it. We got 2 suspects arrested, and we are still looking for one.
The state police spokesperson said male children were sold by the traffickers for $1,630 each, while the girls were being sold for $980. These baby factories are widespread, more so in parts of eastern Nigeria. One of the freed women who did not want to be named said a woman to whom she was introduced had induced labor when she was 7 months pregnant, but her baby died shortly after.
The woman checked me, now put medicine in my private parts. Surgery, neighbor started to do me. The baby is 7 months. I was in the neighbor complete 3 days. I did not deliver. Police people come and arrest us that we are the people that born and 7 children.
2 women aged 40 and 54 were arrested in connection with the case, and police are still looking for a third person linked to the exploitation of these women who come from disadvantaged backgrounds.
And this young woman tell me that if I born my child, that will carry my child, give me money. Or if I decide to carry my child, that all the things that is left for my hair, I will pay her back. So that's because of condition make me to put myself into this trouble.
The State Criminal Investigation Department is working with other agencies to resettle the women, girls and their babies. Last week, around 400 boys and men, some as young as 5 and many in chains and scarred from beatings, were rescued from a building in the northern city of Kaduna that purported to be an Islamic school. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
In South Africa, a group of men living in Soweto has taken safety into their own hands by escorting women and children to public transport in the early hours of the morning. CGTN's Daniela Pearson reports.
The sound of South Africa's vuvuzela became famous during the 2010 Football World Cup. Now, almost a decade later, the trumpet has taken on a new purpose as a security instrument. It's used to alert women in Soweto that their local patrol group is ready to safely escort them to public transport. Domestic worker Zanele Tusi, who starts her day at 4:30 a.m., uses the service for her walk to the train station.
I feel like very happy, because no one to be coming and take my phone and take my bag, Yeah, I'm very, very happy.
It's unclear when the initiative first began, but the trend for vuvuzela patrols has been increasing. South Africa is one of the most violent countries in the world for women. Around 3,000 women were murdered in the country last year, 5 times higher than the global average, according to the WHO. The patrols are welcomed as a male-led initiative by gender activists who say the movement to end gender-based violence in South Africa has mainly been steered by women. Patrollers say there are thousands of them working in groups across Soweto, walking women to their train or bus station and then later back home. Some carry golf clubs, tasers, batons and even whips for added protection. They occasionally receive donations for their work, but mostly do it for free. Daniela Pearson, CGTN.
And let's return to China's National Day celebrations. The president of Mali, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, has congratulated President Xi Jinping for leading China to become one of the world's global powers.
I am always impressed by the changes. I can even say that when you're in China, even when you go to bed, the next day when you wake up, you will see some changes. During each visit, I see something new. And as a friend of the Chinese people, a sincere friend of China, I know China's history and the story of the Chinese people. It's a story of glory, courage, and dignity. I was moved as a child, and I'm happy to see the progress that's been made by these people. I see a vibrant people. I see cities with wide, clean, and well-groomed avenues. We can feel there's a development philosophy which is human-centered. It's put in place according to the needs of China in the current world. But China has also opened itself up to the rest of the world as well. So what comes to my mind first is progress. The continuous and constant progress and the constant improvement of the living conditions of the Chinese people. China could have closed itself up and had a selfish concept of development. It could have said, I'm an economic power now, maybe even amongst the first ones in real numbers today. I don't care about the rest of the world. But no, China said, I am a developing country and I have experienced all stages of underdevelopment. Today there are more than 130 countries that are part of China's Belt and Road Initiative. They are convinced that China today is reassuring. And these countries, these people, are not obligated. They're not forced to join in this. We have just joined it, and it is with joy. The initiative shows China is having more progress, more development, and an even stronger presence alongside the rest of the peoples of the world. China has also made a fabulous friendship with us. When China was holding the Africa-China Summit, my inauguration was scheduled for September 4th, which was in conflict with the time of the summit. President Xi knew about this and asked me to come to China in advance, so I visited China before the opening of the summit. I will never forget this. It's a sign of real friendship, and I still remember my arrival in Yiwu in China.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in your business news. Kenya's economy contracts in the second quarter. And Ethiopia appoints a transaction advisor on Ethio Telecom privatization.
The newly upgraded CGTN website offers optimized coverage of China and international affairs, as well as distinct voices from around the globe. Be the first to know the biggest political news and discover the background to the major decisions. Decode China with a different perspective and get a better understanding of how China sees the world. Go beyond the news with sharp opinions on the events shaping today's world and reveal a China you have never seen before. Listen to entrepreneurs for in-depth analysis of the economy and touch the pulse of new technology via our hands-on videos. Travel back in time with CGTN to learn about China's past and immerse yourself in Chinese culture to discover the stories behind Kung Fu. Get the latest news on Chinese lifestyle, including travel, sports, and nature. Regular productions including Ask China put high-ranking officials on the spot, while C-Lab presents new ways of storytelling via cutting-edge technologies, and Global Stringer delivers unique videos from China and beyond. Take a look at the world from a different angle. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
To the latest in Hong Kong, where protesters have clashed with police in several districts. Police said protesters threw corrosive fluid in Tuen Mun district, injuring officers and some reporters. Police fired tear gas as protesters hurled petrol bombs, bricks and other objects. Dozens of police formed a security cordon to prevent protesters from approaching government facilities. Kenya's economy has grown by 5.6% in the second quarter of this year, compared to 6.4% in the same period last year. This is attributed to the downshift in growth in the farming sector, which accounts for an estimated a third of output, manufacturing and transportation. Previously, the central bank had forecast a 6% growth, citing robust bookings in the tourism sector. The bank is set to review its forecast after the release of the second quarter data. Kenya's diversified economy has ensured rapid growth rates in recent years. However, analysts say the expansion is not sufficient to reduce poverty levels in the country. Meanwhile, Kenya had up to Monday night to exchange the nation's old 1,000 shillings generation notes. In June, the Central Bank of Kenya began issuing new currency notes. This was in attempts to clamp down on money laundering and fake currency in circulation. With the details, here's CGTN's Robert Nagila.
It's goodbye September and hello October. And on the first day of the month, Kenya is about to find out whether its demonetization exercise has been a success or will disrupt the economy. In June this year, the country's central bank announced its intent to withdraw the old 1,000 shilling currency note, the equivalent of $10, and replace it with the new 1,000 shilling note in an attempt to rid the economy of dirty cash. In fact, as far back as August, many businesses had stopped accepting the old currency. Mama Habari, can I get some apples? No? Okay. She says they don't accept the old notes anymore. Back then, the central bank had said there was over 217 million shillings in old currency notes in circulation. However, only 24 people have walked into banks with 2 million shillings in old currency notes. The CBK says about 99% of those who have converted their cash had $1 million or less in old currency notes. Now, the bank says only 106 more money, especially with an estimated 30 billion shortfall. Experts warn this could affect the economy. So what's the worst that can happen?
There is an illiquidity problem that we'll have in the market itself, that there is no much money circulating. And so it creates a cash crunch. And that's a negative effect, so one of the biggest negative effects of demonetization.
The exercise is not new to Kenya. The United States stopped printing 1,000, 5,000 and 10,000 notes in 1946 and demonetized them after 13 years. And Britain took 2 years to demonetize its currency in 1969.
70% live in rural areas, not in urban areas. You have a logistics problem of people accessing banks that they can convert and make the exchange itself. But I think the shortest period that CBK were looking at it, despite a constitutional requirement that we need to replace the old currencies, they were looking at it of fighting illicit cash.
Despite assurances from the central bank, a somewhat nervous financial sector will be watching the next few hours very closely before it reacts to the outcomes from the central bank. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
The Ethiopian government has appointed a transaction advisor as it looks to partly privatize its telecom sector. The privatization is part of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's economic reforms. It is aimed at opening up state-owned companies to private investment, as CGTN's Coletta Wanjohi now explains.
Foreign investors are set to join Ethiopia's telecom sector, where state-owned Ethio Telecom has enjoyed monopoly for decades. The government is now seeking professional guidance to map out exactly how much of the company will be sold in shares.
We've been saying it's up to 49%, but exactly what percent is something that would be decided, because we will be reserving a certain share for the Ethiopian public as well. And also getting Ethio Telecom's data right would be part of it.
The government is set to offer 2 other operating licenses to independent telecoms firms. The Ethiopian government plans to start engaging the new transactions advisor by November this year, with a target of finalizing the privatization process by mid-2020. The international audit firm KPMG is currently valuing Ethio Telecom.
Simultaneously, we're doing a lot of things. The communication authority has been established and is doing a number of works to make sure there is a level playing field for our operators. As you can imagine, that there is a lot of work that needs to be done before we invite operators. And also, the telecom is getting ready for the new market structure. But what we have announced is before the end of this year, transaction process will be completed.
The privatization is part of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's economic reforms, aimed at opening up state-owned companies to private investment.
Opening up these sectors will in and of themselves bring in an initial significant amount of foreign exchange if handled well.
A bid will be put out at a time yet to be decided by the government to invite foreign companies to compete for investment opportunities in the telecommunication sector. Coletta Wanjohi, CGTN, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
And stay with us for more news coming up right after this.
Join us in global business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir
allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Now, many South Sudanese women in the capital, Juba, are making a living out of selling the country's favorite snack. It is a sandwich made of Sudanese lubia beans and bread, a cheap snack found in almost every part of Juba. Here's CGTN's Patrick Oyet.
The most common type of snack one can easily find in Juba is what is known locally as sandwich. Sandwich, or hashwa as it is called in Arabic, has its origin in Sudan. When Sudan and South Sudan were one, this snack became common across the country. The ash or bread is usually brought or bought from the bakery, but there are also those who make them by themselves at home. Then the Sudanese lubia beans is smashed or ground, mixed with some water and fried using oil. The fried lubia beans is known locally as tamia. Now, let's just take a walk around the streets and we see some of these snacks. Now, these snacks are found all over. You can find women under umbrellas along the streets selling sandwich. You find them under verandas selling sandwich. And just now we have one here who is selling 3 pieces of sandwich cost $1. And these 3 pieces are really a lot. It is very difficult for one to finish the 3.
Okay, thanks a lot. Now, how does this business really help you?
This business helps me pay my tuition fees at the university where I'm studying. The money I get from here also helps my mum, and I'm now able to afford some stuff that I need.
For many, it is the money they get from the sale of sandwich, which they in turn use to buy food to feed their families. Some South Sudanese women started selling sandwich on the streets and later went on to own even restaurants. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
And your sports news coming up next. Here's what's ahead.